Let's see here. My meeting with Niko is tomorrow. Okay, he's an experienced course seller. He's also an amiable, which means I need to flex to the fact that he cares deeply about relationships when conducting business. He works hard, but usually falls a little short of his goal. He's good at teaching his customers and taking control of conversations, but we've noted that tailoring his sales messages is an area for development. It will be good to check in on his progress. I know he just had an important meeting with Acme. That's a good opportunity to see what he's done since we last spoke.
Yeah, in my last meeting with Ellen, we agreed I would focus on better tailoring my customer messages. I'd better review my notes on the topic before we meet. I'd also summarize my last sales meeting with Richard at Acme Company, since I need to get some help on how best to proceed with that account.
Hi, Niko, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right, thanks. You?
Busy. You know how it is this time of year, always busy. But that's okay. I always say I'd rather be busy than bored.
Absolutely.
How's the family? If I recall, you had a big birthday party not long ago for little Jonah.
Yep, and Jonah had a fantastic time. But after having 10 3-year-olds over for an afternoon of fun and cake, I should have asked for time off to recover. Talk about exhausting.
I completely understand. Kids seem to have an endless supply of energy, don't they? Well, other than leaving behind a worn-out dad, I'm glad to hear the party went well. I'm also glad we have some time to talk. Finding ways to help you with your professional development and to help you achieve greater sales success is important to me.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
And as you know, our Products Unlimited leadership team has recently asked us to put more focus on coaching. So we'll be having weekly one-on-one meetings to go over your progress and accounts instead of our previous meeting schedule of every other week. Sound good?
Yes, that works.
So we have 20 minutes together. I know you emailed me earlier today asking if we'll be discussing your performance in relation to your annual objectives. That's certainly an important conversation to have, but to be clear, today's meeting is not for me to evaluate your performance. Rather, this conversation is about you. How we can help you develop and refine your skills and capabilities as a sales professional, and how those skills will help you move some important opportunities forward. We can certainly schedule a separate performance conversation if you like, but right now, let's stick to a coaching conversation where we focus on helping you come up with new and better ideas for more success in your accounts. How does that sound?
Okay. Do you mind if we start with my Acme deal? It's a particularly important one for me.
Sure. You recently had a meeting with Richard at Acme, is that right? Tell me, what were you hoping to accomplish in that meeting?
Well, during the meeting, I wanted to introduce him to our newest suite of offerings. Ideally, I'd like to close a deal with Richard before the end of the quarter. If I'm able to do that, then I'll be one big step closer to meeting my goal. The good news is, I've known Richard for years, and we've always had a good working relationship. So I wasn't too concerned going into the meeting. But I don't know if you've heard or not, Richard recently got promoted to managing director. He's the key decision maker now.
Ah, well, that's certainly good news, especially if we can help him with some of his new responsibilities. But let's back up a little. You mentioned that you wanted to introduce him to our newest suite of offerings. In terms of that conversation, what would success have looked like for you? And to what extent were you able to accomplish it?
Well, I was able to show our products like I planned, but it seemed like Richard was a little distracted. He wasn't that engaged and didn't appear to be interested in what I had to say. It was almost as if he wasn't focusing on our conversation.
Okay, what made you think he was distracted?
I don't think he asked me a single question about our products. He just listened to what I had to say, looked at the collateral, and that was about it. Maybe he was just having a busy day, new job and all.
He may have been. Let me ask you, though, what would have made the conversation more effective or valuable for both you and Richard?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about that, trying to figure out if I should have done something differently. I'd be interested to hear your perspective if you have any thoughts.
I'm happy to try to help you think it through it, but I'm very interested to hear your thoughts first, since you were there with Richard firsthand. What do you think could have been different?
Well, going back to something you mentioned a few minutes ago, I'm now wondering if I could have spent more time making it clear how exactly we can help Richard, not just help Acme, but help Richard in his new role.
How so?
Well, if he's the managing director, then he must be concerned about improving their bottom line and improving efficiencies. At least, I would think those are two of his primary objectives, since those issues tend to top the list for all the other managing directors I speak with. He's new, so I know he's probably anxious to make a positive impression with the CEO and board members. So this is his chance. Maybe we can help him look like a star. All I have to do is help him see how we can solve his problems.
I agree. So looking forward, how might you accomplish that? Let me ask it a different way. Based on what you already know about Richard's priorities, communication style, and role, what can you do in your next conversation to better engage him?
Well, I probably should have focused more on tailoring my message. I probably should have used language that resonates more with Richard's current role than what I used to focus on. And I also could have presented my information in a way that works well for Richard. He's very straight and to the point. He's a driver, so it's more about bullet points and fact sheets that get to the point sooner. I need to rely less on visuals and stories.
Absolutely. You know, I like that you touched on this because we've been talking about further tailoring your sales messages to the individual and role lenses. I can already see you're making progress by more easily identifying when and where to use this skill. These are really good thoughts. Would it be all right if I share one of my own?
Oh, yes, please. I'm anxious to hear your perspective.
Well, you specifically mentioned that Richard didn't ask any questions or seem engaged. Going back to the idea of tailoring your message, I had the thought that maybe we can come up with a message that creates a sense of urgency and drives Richard to action. For example, how can you spark his interest by really speaking to Richard's needs? You mentioned using appropriate language and presentation style, but what about using some measurement objectives and timelines? I bet then he'll take notice and snap to attention.
Good point. I can show him I have a deep understanding of his business, and more specifically, his position.
Exactly.
Anything else I can do?
Well, you've come up with some great ways to engage Richard in the next interaction you have with him. Let's continue brainstorming together ways to improve outreach. What tactics have you found to be particularly effective with other customers? Whether something you've tried or something you've heard that worked for one of your peers.
Well, during our last meeting, we discussed self-check actions I can take. For example, I should ask myself, did I make my customer think, I never thought about it that way? Did I make him feel intrigued and wanting to learn more? If not, it wasn't a valuable conversation for my customer. Admittedly, I got a bit caught up in the importance of the Acme deal and didn't ask myself these questions, so I missed the mark. I can see why I need to definitely ask those questions going forward.
You're right. We did talk about that before. But remember, building new habits does take time. You're already taking a good step by keying in on this challenge with Richard. I'd encourage you to give some thought to how you can make the self-check questions a regular part of your routine. But let's turn our attention back to Richard and what you can do to re-engage him with some of the great ideas you mentioned.
Okay. I have a follow-up meeting with Richard next week, so maybe I'll tell him that I've been doing some thinking since we last spoke. I'll introduce the data I have linking back to how we can help improve efficiency in his bottom line in light of some of the new responsibilities I anticipate he has. And I'll be sure to emphasize the metrics he's probably measured by, along with some likely timelines against which he's working now that he's been promoted.
And how will you tell if you're successful? What will you be looking for Richard to do or say?